So we are reading the fifth agreement. We are on the third agreement, page number 51 of the PDF. Don't make assumptions.
The third agreement, don't make assumptions. This takes us to the third agreement, don't make assumptions. Making assumptions is just looking for trouble because most assumptions are not the truth, they are fiction. One big assumption we make is that everything in our virtual reality is the truth. Another big assumption we make is that everything in everyone else's virtual reality is the truth. Well, now you know that none of the virtual realities are the truth.
So ultimately, what is she saying? What is he saying over here, right? Making assumptions is always a problem because it is not the truth. And whenever you make assumptions, you're not sure about whether it's the truth or not, and it is actually not the truth. So that's why making assumptions is something that we must be aware of, अच्छा वो ऐसा सोच रहा होगा, or वो that fellow would have done it like this. He must have done it like this because of this, right? But we do not know whether it's the truth. So it's very important to stop making assumptions.
Using our awareness, we can easily see all the assumptions we make, and we can see how easy it is to make them. Humans have a powerful imagination, very powerful, and there are so many ideas and stories that we can imagine. We listen to the symbols talking in our head. We start imagining what other people are doing, what they're thinking, what they're saying about us, and we dream things up in our imagination. We invent a whole story that's only truth for us, but we believe it. One assumption leads to another assumption. We jump to conclusions and we take our story very personally. Then we blame other people and we usually start gossiping to try to justify our assumptions. Of course, by gossiping, a distorted message becomes even more distorted.
So this is very important, right? One assumption leads to another assumption. So if you make one assumption, then you've had it, because you will have to follow it with another assumption. Because the first assumption itself is not the truth. So you'll have to follow it with other assumptions, which is again making it even more false. That's why gossiping is something that we should really avoid. If the fact is not there, then better not, listen to it. And of course, taking it personally, you make an assumption and then you take it personally, it's even worse, because then you compound the problem for yourself.
Making assumptions and then taking them personally is the beginning of hell in this world. Almost all of our conflicts are based on this, and it's easy to understand why. Assumptions are nothing more than lies that we are telling ourselves. This creates a big drama for nothing, because we don't really know if something is true or not. Making assumptions is just looking for drama when there's no drama happening. And if drama is happening in someone else's story, so what? It's not your story, it is someone else's story.
So whenever we make an assumption, we start going into a drama, right? And drama is what? A control drama. We want to control something. We want to make something happen that we really want to happen, but it is again not based on the truth. So when we start operating out of a control drama, we land up creating huge problems for ourselves, not even understanding that we are creating the drama. So that's why it's very important for us to be centered, right? To just observe. And if something is happening somewhere, just observe it rather than taking it personally all the time. Many times we take onto our shoulders someone else's issues. We want to jump into what someone else is doing. We want to make ourselves heard, right? Because of that, we start saying things and, projecting things which are again not the truth and assumptions just for an ego boost. That also creates huge problems.
Be aware that almost everything you tell yourself is an assumption. If you're a parent, you know how easy it is to make assumptions about your children. It's midnight and your daughter isn't home yet. She went out to dance and you thought she would be home by now. You start imagining the worst. You start making assumptions. Oh, what if something happened to her? Maybe I should call the police. There are so many things you can imagine, and you create a whole drama of possibilities in your head. 10 minutes later, your daughter arrives home with a big smile. When the truth arrives and all the lies are dispelled, you realize that you were simply torturing yourself for nothing. Don't make assumptions.
So it's absolutely true, right? We create all the stuff in our head and land up creating a huge problem for ourselves when it is really not required.
If not taking anything personally gives you immunity in the interaction that you have with other people, then not making assumptions gives you immunity in the interaction that you have with yourself, with your voice of knowledge, or what we call thinking. Making assumptions is all about thinking. We think too much, and thinking leads to assumptions.
So again, when you think, right, one thought leads to the other thought. In the excursion also, we say that don't follow the thought. If you have one thought, okay, it's a thought, that's it. The problem with us is that we start following the thought, and every thought we have is an assumption. So it totally distorts the figure. It takes us from point A to point B, and point A and B have no connection whatsoever.
Just thinking what if can create a huge drama in our lives. Every human can think a lot, and thinking brings fear. We have no control over all that thinking, all those symbols that we distort in our head. If we just stop thinking, we no longer try to explain anything to ourselves, and this keeps us from making assumptions.
So again, there is no answer to a what if. What if this happens? What if that happens? Even in a program or in you're attending some seminar, the person is explaining something and then you'll say, what if this happens? He attempts to answer it, right? But again, if there's a what if, you've already answered it for yourself, and then there'll be another what if after that. So this what if question, if it starts playing in your head, you're in big trouble. We need to drop the what if, right? The other thing is that whenever we get into the what if, it will always lead to fear. It is putting us on the left side of the grid. So we need to be clear that we need to transcend the what if in that. Okay. Now, whenever we start thinking, we start depleting ourselves. The energy field starts get depleting because every thought is consuming energy in our head. And what does meditation lead to? It leads to a state of no thought. You start going still, right? So when you start going still, then there are less assumptions that you are making. That's why meditation is becoming so important. And when we look at it from the excursion and the gateway point of view, what is happening, right? In literally 1 day or 2 days, you go into a state of stillness. You start just being present rather than making assumptions. All the thinking stops in the head. That's why I think the Hemi-Sync process is so powerful in itself.
Humans have a need to explain and justify everything. We have a need for knowledge and we make assumptions to fulfill our need to know. We don't care whether the knowledge is true or not. Truth or fiction, we believe 100% in what we believe. And we go on believing it because just having knowledge makes us feel safe. There are so many things that the mind cannot explain. We have all these questions that need answers. But instead of asking questions when we don't know something, we make all sorts of assumptions. If we just ask questions, we won't have to make assumptions. It's always better to ask and be clear.
So this is very, very important, right? The only way to get to know something is to ask the question. And people shirk from asking questions because they've already formed an opinion about what they want to say or what they want to do. In most conversations also, instead of listening to the other person, we are already thinking as to what we are going to say, right? Now, all that becomes a huge problem for us. If we want to know what is there, we need to ask the question, is this true? Is this what it is? This is what I understood of what you said, right? Again, in the Resilience Advantage program, we talk about coherent communication. That is, in coherent communication, one of the tenets is that you reconfirm with the person who's talking to you that, is this what you said? This is what I understood. Now, if that starts happening, then most of the assumptions that we start making in our head can get eradicated.
If we don't make assumptions, we can focus our attention on the truth, not on what we think is the truth. Then we see life the way it is, not the way we want to see it. As we shall see, when we don't believe our own assumptions, the power of our belief that we invested in them returns to us. When we recover all the energy that we invested in making assumptions, we can use that energy to create a new dream, our personal heaven. Don't make assumptions.
So now, whenever we make assumptions and we want to protect it, right, we spend a lot of energy. But if we just accept what is, then we stop expending energy unnecessarily. There is no expenditure of energy. We just know we are just being in that, we are just being, let's put it that way.
The power of belief, the symbol of Santa Claus. There was a time in your life when you completely owned the power of your belief. And when you were educated to be a part of humanity, the power of your belief went into all those symbols that you learned. And at a certain point, the symbols gained power over you. In truth, the power of your belief went into everything that you know. And since then, everything that you know has ruled your life. Obviously, when we are little children, we are overcome by the power of everyone else's beliefs. The symbols are a wonderful invention, but we are introduced to the symbols with the opinions and beliefs already there. We ingest every opinion without questioning if it's truth or not. And the problem is that by the time we master a language with all the opinions that we hear growing up, the symbols already have the power of our belief.
So again, we are stuck with our belief system. Now, if we don't question our belief system, then we cannot transcend it, right? So it's very important to really introspect and understand whether what we are believing in is the truth or not. That's why we need to keep looking at it. We need to keep studying. We need to keep investigating. We need to keep asking the question, is this the truth or not?
This isn't good or bad or right or wrong. It's just the way it is, and it happens to all of us. We are learning to be a member of our society. We learn a language, we learn a religion or philosophy. We learn a way of being, and we structure our whole belief system based on everything we are told. We have no reason to doubt what other people tell us until the first heartbreak happens. And we find out that something they told us isn't true.
So again, we have to keep questioning, why is this? Why is this? Give me a reason for it, right? Make me understand what this is all about. And that's how we actually create our reality. We really get rid of all the illusions that are there in our life.
We go to school and we hear older kids talking, referring to us. They say, "You see that kid? He still believes in Santa Claus." Sooner or later, we find out that Santa Claus doesn't exist. Can you remember your reaction, how you felt when you found out that Santa Claus was not the truth? I don't think your parents had bad intentions. Believing in Santa Claus is a wonderful tradition for millions of people. The lyrics of one song describe what we are told about the symbol we know as Santa. "You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town." We are told that Santa Claus knows everything we do or don't do. He knows when we've been bad or good. He knows when we don't brush our teeth, and we believe this. Christmas comes and we see a huge difference in the gifts that children receive. Let's say you ask Santa for a bicycle and you were good the whole year. Your family is very poor. You open your gifts and you don't receive a bicycle. Your neighbor, who was very bad, and you know what very bad means, receives a bicycle. You say, "I was good, this boy was bad. How come I didn't receive a bicycle?" If Santa Claus really knows everything that I do, for sure he knows everything that my neighbor did. Why would Santa bring a bicycle to my neighbor and not to me?
So again, we need to start questioning, right? Instead of just believing everything, we need to ask why. Okay, what is in it for it? And I think this is the reason why even when we look at Hinduism, the why of whatever was being done was never explained. And that's why today now kids are asking the why and the elders don't know why, right? So that's become a huge problem in the Hindu system, at least what I'm seeing. So that's why we need to keep asking why. What is the reason behind why we are doing something? And then there can be a very good reason also, but if we don't know the reason, then it lands up creating a problem for us.
It's just not fair, and you don't understand why. Your emotional reaction is envy, anger, even sadness. You see the other little guy riding his bicycle very happily all around, behaving worse than he did before, and you want to go and hit him or break the bicycle. Injustice. And that sense of injustice is because you believe in a lie. It's an innocent lie with no bad intention, of course, but you believe it. And you make an agreement with yourself. From now on, I won't be good. I'm going to be bad like my neighbor. Later, you discover that Santa Claus is not true. He isn't real, but it's too late. You already released all the emotional poison. You already suffered the anger, the jealousy, the sadness. You already suffered from making an agreement that was based on a lie.
So again, you made an agreement with yourself based on an assumption, which then lands up creating a problem in your life.
This is just one example of how we invest our faith in a symbol. There are hundreds, even thousands of symbols, stories, and superstitions that we learn. The symbol of Santa Claus demonstrates how even believing in an innocent lie can bring up emotions that feel like a fire burning inside us.
So why does this happen, right? Because whenever a belief system is transcended, right, and forcefully transcended, it will always create hurt for us. So when we transcend a belief system with understanding, then it's a different ball game. But if we are forced into a belief system and then we have to transcend it or get out of it, it always lands up creating a problem.
They feel like poison, they're hurting us, they're hurting our body, and we suffer from a story that isn't real. The emotions are real, they are part of the truth, but the reason we are feeling them is not real. It's not truth. It's fiction. If you're asking yourself why you're so miserable at times, it's because you're telling yourself a story that isn't true, but you believe it. The truth is that your dream has become distorted, but that's not good or bad or right or wrong because it's happening to billions of other people. You're not the only one in that situation, and that's the good news. The world of symbols is extremely powerful because we make every symbol powerful with that force that comes from deep within us. That force that we call life, faith, or intent. We don't even realize that it's happening, but together all the symbols form a whole structure made by agreements, and we call it a belief system. From a single letter to a word, from a single story to an entire philosophy, everything believe, we agree to believe goes into that structure.
So again, the belief system is the issue that we need to transcend, right? And it is created through what we are calling intent over here, or faith over here, right? What is our intent? So the intent really matters a lot whenever we are doing anything. And our intent is usually based or comes from the foundation of our belief system. So if you want to shift, you need to introspect on your belief system. What is holding you back and what is taking you forward? If anything in your belief system is holding you back, we need to look at it and then transcend it or drop it, because we need to transcend the illusions to actually acquire the freedom that we are really looking for.
The belief system gives form and structure to our virtual reality, and with every agreement we make, the structure grows stronger and gains more power until it becomes nearly as rigid as a brick building. If we imagine every symbol, every concept, every agreement as a brick, then our faith is the mortar that holds the bricks together. As we continue to learn throughout our lives, we mix the symbols in many directions and the concepts interact with themselves to create more complex concepts. The abstract mind becomes organized in a more complicated way, and the structure keeps growing and growing until we have a totality of everything that we know.
So whatever we know, right, it automatically builds on itself. So a structure gets created. Like for example, I keep using this example. If I go to Taj Mahal, I have an experience there. I smell a smell there. I hear some sounds there. I'm going with someone. I touch Taj Mahal. I feel it, right? Now, even if one of those things happens somewhere else, the picture of Taj Mahal will come because it's recorded as in a holographic form in my memory system, right? So again, it's like organizing, right? The brain is, or the mind is constantly organizing all the data we get so that we create a life system for us. But at the end of the day, these are all symbols, right? And then when we start really understanding what it is all about, we need to transcend this symbolism that leads to the creation of our belief system.
This structure is what the Toltec call the human form. The human form is not the form of the physical body, it's the form that our mind takes. It's the structure of our beliefs about ourselves, about everything that helps us make sense of our dream. The human form gives us our identity, but it's not the same as the frame of the dream. The frame of the dream is the material world as it is, which is truth. The human form is the belief system with all the elements of judgment. Everything in that belief system is our personal truth, and we judge everything according to those beliefs, even if those beliefs go against our own inner nature.
So in this movie, Inception, I don't know how many of you all have seen this movie, but they are wanting to put an idea into the head or the mind of a person deep down so he doesn't even realize that someone has put the idea there. Now, to create that, you need an architect who creates the framework in which that person's memories will come in. Like, so it is like creating the Aadhaar. Nagarji also keeps saying, what is the Aadhaar? What is everything based on, right? So again, over here, it's clearly saying that our belief system creates the framework on which we exist, right? But then that framework is not the truth. It's not ultimately the truth. Like in Inception, the architect created a framework, but that framework was not the truth. It was not reality. But we were operating inside that. Even in the Matrix, the same thing was shown where people were plugged into a system and they were living in a virtual reality. When they were plugged out of the system, that entire virtual reality collapsed. So we have created a framework around ourselves in which we exist, but that thing is not really the truth, right? And many times what happens is because we are living in that framework, we totally believe that framework that this is the truth, and then everything we do is basically manipulated by that particular framework or belief system.
In the process of domestication, the belief system becomes the book of law that rules our lives. When we follow the rules according to our book of law, we reward ourselves. When we don't follow the rules, we punish ourselves. The belief system becomes the big judge in our mind and also the greatest victim because first it judges us, then it punishes us. The big judge by symbols, is made by symbols and it works with symbols to judge everything we perceive, including the symbols. The victim is the part of us that receives the judgment and suffers the punishment. And when we interact with the outside dream, we judge and punish everyone and everything else according to our personal book of law.
So again, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad? This is all indicated by our belief system. Now, what may be good for one person may be bad for another person. But because we are working from our belief system, what we think is bad, even if another person does that, it is bad. But that is not always the truth, right? And because of the belief systems, we tend to suffer also because we are constantly, and it's not about anyone else judging us, right? It's about us judging ourselves. What are we guilty about? When we are doing something and it is a contrary to our belief system, we will tend to feel guilty, right? So we are punishing ourselves with that also. So again, we have to be very clear about what we are doing with our belief systems.
The big judge is doing a perfect job, of course, because we agree with all those laws. The problem is that the belief system comes to life within us and uses our knowledge against us. It uses everything we know, all of our rules about how we have to live our lives, to punish the victim, which is the human. It uses our language to create the self judgment, the self rejection, the guilt, the shame. It verbally abuses us and makes us miserable by creating our personal demons and our personal dream of hell. There are so many symbols that we can use to say the same thing.
So again, because we know everything about ourselves and our belief system is what we are operating in, and everything has occurred inside our belief system, the self-critic is the biggest problem, right? So we need to be aware when the belief system is using ourselves to criticize ourselves. So being critical of yourself is the worst thing I think that you can really do to yourself.
The belief system rules the human life like a tyrant. It takes our freedom away from us and makes us its slave. It takes power over the real us, the human life, and it isn't even real. The real us stays hidden someplace in the mind, and the one who controls the mind at that point is everything we know, everything we agreed to believe. The human body, which is beautiful and perfect, becomes the victim of all judgment and punishment. It becomes just a vehicle where the mind acts and projects itself through the body.
So again, the belief system actually rules us like a tyrant. It is very difficult to do anything that is against your belief system because it will lead to you feeling guilty, right? And because of that, it really controls us to the hilt. And that's why it becomes very important to start observing where you're operating from all the time. And that's where the grid comes in. I think the grid is such a beautiful tool. It's not funny, right? If you can just start operating from figuring out where you're coming from, you can easily transcend your belief system, because many times what you think or your belief system says is right is not always right. And that you can assess using the grid.
The belief system is in the realm of the mind. We cannot see it or measure it, but we know that it exists. Perhaps what we don't know is that this structure only exists because we create it. Our creation is completely attached to us. It follows us wherever we go. We've been living this way for so long that we don't even notice it, that we live in this structure. And even though the mind isn't real, it's virtual, it's also total power because it's also created by life.
So because we created it and we are constantly living in it, it's like a fish living in water. The fish will never notice the water. So we don't even notice it. And that is where awareness starts to creep in. When we start expanding our awareness, we come to an understanding that, okay, this is a belief system. This is not what is real. And we need to investigate it. And if it is not working, we need to transcend it. That is what awareness is all about.
Then, something very important in the mastery of awareness is to be aware of our own creation, to be aware that it's alive. Every one of our beliefs, from a minimal one like the sound of a letter to a whole philosophy, is using our life force to survive. If we could see our mind in action, we would see millions of life forms, and we would see that we are giving life to our creation by giving it the power of our faith, by giving it all of our attention. We are using our life force to support the whole structure. Without us, these ideas could not exist. Without us, the whole structure would collapse.
So this is the reason why we want to go into the expanded states of consciousness, right? We are so used to living in the soup that is being created by our belief systems that if we are living in the soup, we can't take care of it. We cannot transcend it. We have to get out of the soup to be able to observe that, yes, this is a belief system. Only then we can transcend it. And that's the beauty again of the Monroe process, which allows us to go into higher and higher focus levels, get a higher and a higher view about what is happening and whether it is the truth or not, which is why most people who attend the programs create shifts start to happen in their life, because they start transcending the belief systems. And ultimately, we are the ones who are living in that belief system, and it is our belief system, right? No single person's belief system is exactly like the other person's belief system. So we have a responsibility to transcend our own belief system. No one else can do it for us. And again, if we stop paying attention to the belief system, we stop caring about the belief system, then it has no power. It'll just evaporate.
If we use the power of our imagination, we can see the creation of our personal mythology, the construction of our belief system, and the beginning of investing our faith in lies. In the process of all that construction, all that learning we do, there are many concepts that contradict other concepts. There are so many different dreams that we build, and when we create so many structures, they go against one another and annul the power of our word. In that moment, our word is almost nothing, because when there are two forces going in opposite directions, the result is zero. When there is only one force going in one direction, the power is immense and our intentions manifest just because we say so, just because our word has all the power of our faith.
So this is extremely important. Clarity of our thinking. What is it that we really desire? So I keep using this example in the excursion also, that let's say I'm thinking of buying a lottery ticket. And in my mind, I think that I've won the lottery ticket. Then in my mind, I think that, I've won 10 crores, 30% will be taken by the income tax department. Then all the people who know me will get after me for donations. Then where will I keep the money? I don't know where to keep the money. How will I handle the money? My children will be under threat of being kidnapped, right? Now I will never buy the lottery ticket. Why? Because I've gone into the what if, I've gone into a construction of something which is not real. I haven't even bought the lottery ticket. Whether I will win the lottery ticket or not, again, that's a big question mark, right? But I've already created all this jamela in my mind. So there is one desire to get the money from the lottery ticket, and the other thing is saying that if I get the money, then it's going to create a lot of problems for me. They cancel each other out. That's why clarity of your intent. What is it that you really want, and what is it that you're really looking for, becomes very important. Another way to look at it is, I want to move my a table from point A to point B, and I call in a friend of mine to help me. Now I'm pushing the table from one side, and my friend is pushing the table from the other side. The table is not going to move. That's why we need to have clarity of intent and push from the same side, and then it will move to our destination, or what is it that we really desire. That's why clarity of intent becomes very, very important in creating whatever we want to really create.
As children, we invest our faith in almost everything that we learn, and this is how we lose power over our own lives. By the time we grow up, our faith is already invested in so many lives that we hardly have any power left to create the dream that we want to create. The belief system has all the power of our faith, and by the end of the equation, we remain with almost zero faith, zero power. And it's easy to see how we invest our faith in a symbol like Santa Claus. But it's not as easy to see how we do the very same thing with every symbol, every story, and every opinion that we learn about ourselves, about everything.
So we are told that this will happen like this will happen like that, this is that. But if we do not have that awareness to actually look at what we are being told, then naturally they have so much power over us that we forget what we really want to create. What is it that we are really looking for? That really goes out of the window because we get stuck in the belief system that we exist in. And that belief system is naturally inculcated into us through our childhood.
I think this is very important to understand, and the only way to understand it is by being aware that this is what we are doing. If we have the awareness that we invest our personal power in everything that we believe, perhaps it will be easy to take our power back from the symbols, and those symbols will no longer have any power over us. If we take the power out of every symbol, the symbols become just symbols. Then they will obey the Creator, which means the real us, and they will serve their real purpose to be a tool that we can use to communicate.
So ultimately, all symbols are made only for communication. But when we attach emotion to a symbol, that is when it takes up our power, right? So if we don't attach emotion to the symbol, to the meaning of whatever we are talking about, then there is no issue involved with it. So we need to just use a symbol as a symbol. That's all.
When we find out that Santa Claus isn't the truth, we no longer believe in Santa Claus, and the power we invested in that symbol returns to us. This is when we become aware that we are the one who agreed to believe in Santa Claus. When we recover our awareness, we can see that we are the one who put the power of our faith in every symbol. Then we are the only one who can take that power back. If we have this awareness, I think we can recover the power over everything that we believe and never lose control over our own creation. Once we can see that we are the one who creates the structure of our beliefs, this helps us to recover faith in ourselves. When we have faith in ourselves instead of the belief system, we have no doubt where that power comes from, and we start to dismantle the structure.
So at the end of the day, it's all about being aware. The more aware we can become of whatever is happening around us, what is happening to us, the more power we bring to ourselves. We start operating out of our authentic selves rather than the false belief systems that we have created for ourselves. So many times we'll be told you can't do this. So words like can't, won't, should, could, all these words will start going out of the window, right? Because when the universe shows us something, shows up in our lives, when we start saying yes, we start saying that, yes, I will attempt it, the power automatically comes back to us. But most of the time we are saying we can't do it because of the belief system. And when we start saying yes, then the structure of the belief system will also start getting dismantled.
Once the structure of our belief system is no longer there, we become very flexible. We can create anything we want to create. We can do anything we want to do. We can invest our faith in anything we want to believe. It's our choice. If we no longer believe in all that we know that makes us suffer, then just like magic, our suffering disappears and we don't need a lot of thinking. We need action. It's action that is going to make the difference.
So again, when we start saying yes to what is showing up in our lives, we automatically become very, very flexible, right? And most of the time, what is happening is we are constantly thinking rather than doing. So when we start taking action and start really doing what needs to be done, then we take the power back into our own hands. And that's when the magic starts to happen. One thing will lead to the other thing, right? And we have to trust that when something comes into our lives, everything that is required to execute that thing is in us. We have that power. The moment we start operating from there, that belief system of you can't do it, you won't do it, it's a bad thing to do, good thing to do, all that stops happening, and the world really starts to shift, and everything starts becoming effortless. You can start just doing anything, and magic starts to happen.
Practice makes the master. The fourth agreement, always do your best. When you are ready to change your life, when you are ready to change your agreements, the most important thing is awareness. You cannot change your agreements if you aren't aware of what you like and what you don't like. How can you change anything if you're not even aware of what you want to change? But it's more than just being aware. It's the practice that will make a difference. Because you can be aware, but that doesn't mean your life will change. Change is the result of action, is the result of practice. Practice makes the master.
So again, the first step of wherever you want to transcend anything, you want to solve the problem, the first thing is that you need to be aware of it. The second step is that you need to accept it, right? Okay, that this is something that is not right, or this is what I need to do. The third step is you need to brainstorm as to what you need to do. The fourth step is actually taking action. The fifth step is introspection as to whether the action worked or it didn't work. If it didn't work, you come back to the third step, right? Now, the point here is that we've made agreements with each other. I can't do 100 push-ups, right? Now, you made an agreement with yourself, but is it the truth? If you start practicing one step at a time, maybe you can do 10 push-ups just now. One step at a time, you'll be able to do 100 push-ups. So the point is that number one is awareness, and number two is implementation, action, taking action to transcend the belief system. That is what makes everything grow.
Everything you have ever learned, you learn through repetition and practice. You learn to talk, you learn to walk, you even learn to write by repetition. You are a master of speaking language because you practiced. This is the same way that you learned all the beliefs that rule your life, by practice. The way you are living your life right now is the result of many years of practice.
So again, you learn something by repeatedly doing that thing, whether we like it or not. So that's why it becomes very important for us to pay attention to what we are doing and how we are doing, right? What is the state of consciousness? Where are we operating from? Becomes a question which is very, very important in my view, right? Because if you're practicing the so-called wrong thing, then that will become a very big part of your belief system, right? So you need to be aware of what you're practicing.
During your whole life, you practiced every moment to become what you believe you are right now. You practiced until it became automatic. And when you start practicing something new, when you change what you believe you are, your whole life is going to change. If you practice being impeccable with your word, if you don't take anything personally, if you don't make assumptions, you are going to break thousands of agreements that keep you trapped in the dream of hell. Very soon, what you agree to believe will become the choice of your authentic self, not the choice of the image of yourself that you thought you were.
So again, whatever you practice becomes automatic. When you started learning how to drive the car, you had to focus on pressing the clutch, pressing the brake, pressing the accelerator, changing the gear, turning the steering wheel, switching on your light, switching on your wiper, when to do it, why to do it. You were constantly thinking. Now, many a times you'll find that you're sitting in the car, you've reached your destination, and you don't even know how you've reached your destination because it's become automatic. You're not paying conscious attention to that particular thing. Now, if we start using the three agreements which are there, that is not taking anything personally, not making assumptions, and being implicit with your word, then what happens?
Impeccable.
Impeccable with your, sorry, being impeccable with your word. What happens is that ultimately you will not be trapped because there'll be no lie. You're authentic, right? Your real self, your real character will start to come out.
The first agreement, be impeccable with your word, is all you need to create a beautiful life. It will take you all the way to heaven, but you may need support for this agreement. When you don't take anything personally, when you don't make assumptions, you can imagine that it's easier to be impeccable with your word. When you don't make assumptions, it's easier not to take anything personally and vice versa. By not taking anything personally and by not making assumptions, you are supporting the first agreement.
This is really beautiful, right? If you're not taking things personally and you're not making any assumptions, then you're automatically being impeccable with your word.
The first three agreements may seem difficult to do. They may even seem impossible for us to do. Well, believe me, it's not impossible, but I have to agree that it's difficult because we practice exactly the opposite. All our lives, we practice believing the voice in our head. But there is the fourth agreement, and it's easy. This is the agreement that makes everything possible. Always do your best. You can do your best, and that's it. No more, no less. Just do your best. Do. Take action. How can you do your best if you don't take action?
So again, doing your best, do your best and forget the rest, right? in any given situation, just do your best. And the rest will automatically take care of itself. If you're not doing your best, then there is always an issue. There is a problem. You need to look at what you're doing.
Always do your best is the agreement that everybody can do. Your best is in fact the only thing you can do. And the best you can do doesn't mean that sometimes you give 80% and other times you give just 20%. You're always giving 100%. That's always your intention. It's just that your best is always changing from one moment to the next. You are never the same. You are alive and changing all the time, and your best is also changing from one moment to the next.
So the basic point is that whatever the situation, wherever you are, whatever the action that needs to be taken, be 100% present and be 100, just give it your 100%, right? Don't do anything flip flop, slip shot. Just give it your best. Do your best to the best of your ability. And actually, there's nothing better that you can do, right? If you've done your best, then you don't have to answer to anyone else because you have done your best, right? And everything will start changing as soon as we start focusing on doing our best.
Your best will depend on whether you are feeling physically tired or refreshed. Your best will depend on how you're feeling emotionally. Your best is going to change over time. And as you form the habit of practicing the four agreements, your best is going to get better.
So
The
again,
fourth,
the more authentic you can be with yourself, more authenticity will come into your life and you will always become better and better in whatever you do.
the fourth agreement allows the first three agreements to become deeply ingrained habits. Repetition and practice will make you the master, but don't expect that you can master these agreements right away. Don't expect that you are always going to be impeccable with your word, or that you are never going to take anything personally, or that you are never going to make assumptions. Your habits are too strong and firmly rooted in your mind. Just do your best.
So again, we need to look at ourselves also with compassion, with gentleness, with care, right? So what we need to focus on is just doing our best and always continuously raise the bar for ourselves. The moment we start doing that, everything will ultimately start to fall into place.
If you fail to keep one of the agreements, make the agreement again. Begin again tomorrow and again the next day. Keep practicing and practicing. Each day will become easier. By doing your best, the habits of misusing your word, taking things personally, and making assumptions will become weaker and less frequent over time. If you keep taking action to change your habits, it's going to happen.
So again, basically becoming aware of what you're doing, right? And then always being aware that you're doing your best.
Eventually, the moment will come when all four agreements become a habit. You don't even try. It's automatic, it's effortless. One day you discover that you are ruling your life with the four agreements. Can you imagine your life with these agreements become a habit? Instead of struggling with conflict and drama, your whole life becomes very easy.
So again, whatever you pay attention to, whatever you are aware of, and whatever you practice becomes your habit. So if you can inculcate good habits in yourself, naturally they will become a part of you. So if you are operating from the four agreements, it can really, really transform your life. I've seen it happening in my own life. I'm attempting to be aware of these agreements all the time. I know that I'm not 100% successful, but yes, most of the time I am being successful. And I can see that there are pretty major shifts in what is happening with me. I'm not interested in gossip anymore. I don't make I attempt not to make too many assumptions. right? And I'm always giving my best to the best of my ability at that point in time, wherever we are. So it really can shift a lot of things in us.
If you are going to create anyway, if you cannot avoid dreaming, then why not create a beautiful dream? You have a mind, you perceive light, you are going to dream. If you make the choice to not create anything, you are going to get bored, and the big judge will resist being bored. Then, of course, it's going to judge you according to what you believe. Oh, you are lazy. You should be doing something with your life. Then why not dream well and really enjoy your dream? If you can believe in your limitations, then why not believe in the beauty and power of life that's flowing through you?
So again, naturally, we need to look at abundance. We need to look at what we are really wanting, right? And let's create a beautiful dream, beautiful reality for ourselves. At the end of the day, we are constantly seeing in this book, at least, and in the other books that we've read, that we create our reality. So why not create a beautiful reality around us rather than getting stuck all the time?
Life gives us everything, and everything in life can be a pleasure. Why not believe in the generosity of life? Why not learn to be generous and kind to yourself? If that makes you happy and you're good to everybody around you, why not? If you're always transforming, if your dream is always changing, even if you don't want it to change, why not master the transformation and create your personal heaven?
So you can create your personal heaven in any given circumstances, right? It's all a matter of perspective. How are you looking at it? If we can, again, the grid comes in over here, right? How are we looking at it? Are we looking at whatever is happening with us from the right side of the grid? Are we looking at it from the left side of the grid? And let me tell you, everything can shift the moment we start operating from the right side of the grid. And now, if you use the four agreements, right? You're impeccable with your word. You're not making any assumptions. You're not taking things personally, and you're doing your best. You will automatically be on the right side of the grid. I think we can stop here today.
Stop the recording.